Welcome to video number 15. This is me learning how to use the Elektron Digitone 2 and passing on to you everything I learn as I learn it. This is a big one today. This is chord mode, and there's loads to this. This could be quite a long video, but I'm going to go into this in real detail so that you can learn everything you need to know about this amazing function. This is the project I've made for this tutorial, and I've called it chord mode. Come out of that. This is pattern 1, I've labelled it as such, and I'm going to use this sound on track 1, which is called DX Rhodes 1, which is a sound that I programmed in. I've got my Yamaha DX Reface keyboard MIDI'd to the Digitone, so I'm coming out from the Yamaha in to the Digitone, and that's going to be very useful for the purposes of this video. I'm sending on MIDI channel 1, and of course I've got track 1 here, MIDI channel 1. I'm sure you get the idea. So what is the purpose of the chord mode? Well, it's to create chords that you can use in your projects, and there's loads of ways you can do that, and like I said, I'm going to show you all those. So what is a chord? I mean, we all know that when we play a note, that's a single sound, but when we play several notes, or even just 2 notes, that is a chord. And a chord generally sounds nice, though you can have some horrible things like that. Those are discords, but these are chords. I'm using my fingers in that very amateurish way so you can see the notes. So with the Digitone in this mode, so I'm not in record mode, just the normal playback mode, I've got nothing in this at the moment, it's completely empty. If I press this key with the picture of the piano keyboard on it, now you can see that these keys have lit up here. Just turn that off, or just press that again. Keep your eye on the top of the display. It says AEOLIAN major. That means to say that if I play these notes, I've got the major scale, in this case the major scale of C. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Single notes, these notes. Okay, C to C. This mode is known as normal mode. It's the first of the modes. I'm going to hold function in that KB setup key, and now I'm properly into the menu for the chords. Now this is the first mode. It's called normal, and like I say, you've got just the notes. Now I've picked the scale as Ionian. Ionian is a mode. The Ionian mode is the same as the major scale. We're using C5 as our root. That means to say that this scale is C to C. A typical major scale of C. You can play the chords like this, okay, by playing several keys at once, but it's not really an awful lot of use like that. By the way, if you want to see what track you're on, it says T1 in the top corner. As you play notes, you get the name of the note, and it's also got a little mark on the actual virtual key. And of course, in C major, there are no black notes, they're all white notes. Underneath these items, it shows which encoder you turn to change that item. We're going to leave it like that for the moment. Let's rotate the level data encoder 1 to the right. Now we are in folded mode. That means to say that we've got our scale that we had before. This note is the same as this note, and if we go up from here, we've got another octave. So it's like going up 2 octaves of the major scale. And again, you could play chords there with those keys. Now let's rotate our level data encoder 1 more to the right, and we're now in chord root mode. We've only got trigs 9 to 15 lit in the bottom, and we've got this number 1 trig lit red. So what does this mean? Each one of these keys is going to give us a chord, but we get nothing out of that top one there. Now this red key here, if I press it, if I come away from it, you'll see the shape has changed. Come back to it. The shape is 1, 3, 5. What does that mean? Well, we know we've got our major scale, 8 notes. If I take the first, the third and the fifth, play those 3 notes, you'll see they're coming up on the virtual keyboard on the Digitone, and if you look on the left you can see those notes are C, 5, E5 and G5, and that's written top to bottom but going up. I'm not quite sure whether that should be the other way up, but anyway, the G5 there at the bottom of that list is the top note in my chord. And obviously if you know anything about music, which I'm sure you do, this is a C major chord, the first, third and fifth notes of the major scale. Now I'm playing 3 keys to achieve that, but here I've only got to press that key there. Notice this keyboard is touch sensitive. This isn't. I'm getting full volume every time, and you can see those notes coming up on the top there. Now these red keys give me different chord types. So that is first, third and fifth. Number 2 is first, second and fifth, like a C sus2. That's just the first and the third, just that. See? This is first and fourth. This is first and fifth. So number 6 is first, fourth and fifth. Number 7 is first, third, fifth and seventh. So that is a C major 7th chord. So trig number 8 gives me the first, the fourth and the 7th. Bit of a strange chord. It's like a C major 7th with a sus4. Anyway, so with this first trig lit up, if I play these keys from 9 to 15, I'm hearing the harmonised scale of C major. So this chord is C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and of course if there were a chord on this trig 16 it would be C major again. I'll show you that on the keyboard. So C major is C, E, G, D minor is D, F, A, E minor is E, G, B, F major is F, A, C, G major is G, B, D, A minor is A, C, E, and B diminished is B, D, F. And then of course if I kept going, notice with all those chords I didn't use any black notes. That's what I'm getting if I play those keys on the Digitone. Okay, so that's the AEOLIAN scale. Let's do something a little bit more interesting now. If I play from C up to C using only the white notes, that is a scale of C major, or the AEOLIAN mode of C. Now, if I play from A up to A, but using the same notes, that is a scale of A natural minor, or the AEOLIAN mode. That's the same thing. So we say that A minor is the relative minor of C major, and C major is the relative major of A minor. Let's change the root note to A4, rotate the F encoder, and we'll change the mode to AEOLIAN. A few here, as you can see. Now, if I go back to the normal mode, I've got those notes of the AEOLIAN mode, or A natural minor scale. All white notes again, you see? So the chords we get by playing the keys this time are the harmonised scale of A minor. So we've got, same as going, so it's the same chords we had in C major but in a different order. So we start with A minor, then we've got B diminished, C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, and if we kept going we come back to A minor. You see? So we've got a completely different set of chords. And of course all these would change as well. So if I went to the major 7th, we'd have all these harmonised scale using those notes from the major 7th chord. Let's rotate the level data encoder one to the right again, and we're now in chord center mode. It's the American spelling of center, which is fine of course. Now in this mode, chord shapes are inverted to keep the chords in one area of the keyboard as much as possible. So if you listen to the chords this time, notice how it keeps dropping back, so I'm all in one area. So to keep the chords as close as possible, the chords are being inverted. In other words, notes are changing around. So we've got A minor, B diminished, as they were. This chord here on 11 is G, C, E. It's this C major instead of this C major. Let's see what we've got on 12. Right, this chord is A, D, F. So that's A, D, F, D minor instead of this D minor. See, it's dropped down to there. So here we've got G, B, E for an E minor instead of this one. We've dropped down to here. See? On 14, this F chord is A, C, F. And on 15, this chord here is G, B, D, G major. You see? So it's all in one nice tidy area rather than the other mode where we go up in semitones like that, you see. So it's a different way of finding the chords. They're all the same chords, just different inversions. A chord of E minor, for instance, is E, G and B, but it's also E minor if it's B, E and G, or G, B and E. It's the same chords. It doesn't matter which way around those notes are. Those are all E minors. They're all legitimate E minor chords. And you can move the key centre up and down with the transpose plus or minus. If you hold the KB setup key, the keyboard key down, and move that centre around, you can bring it down there, and then the centre has moved down, so the notes are even lower pitched, the chords are even lower pitched. I can move that up. See, it's a little bit higher up, but it's still recentering itself, you see? So there's our chord of A minor in its root position. Now if I keep pressing that chord and the plus button, you can hear the chord is inverting and getting different inversions. There we've got ACE, CEA, EAC, and then ACE again. It's all the same chord, it's all A minor but different inversions. So it's like going A minor, A minor, A minor, A minor, you see? So you can hear, and same with any of these chords, you can transpose them up, inverting. It's the same chord over and over again, and the notes in a different order. So in this chord here, the A is the lowest note in the chord. If I come up one, right, what's happened now is that the A is on the top, so the A is moved from there to there. So there's A minor, and there it is again there, see? And then I'd move the C up to the top, and then the E up to the top, see? So it's constantly tumbling over itself to give you the same chord. Let's bring that down again. There's our root position. Root position means that the A is at the bottom of the chord. Like that, you see? And can you see when I play the Yamaha, the notes are coming up on the left, the names of the notes and the actual keys that I'm pressing are marked on the virtual keyboard on the Digitone 2. It's clever, isn't it? This chord here is E, A, C, that. Now if you look at the virtual keyboard here, you'll see that the E and the A have got black marks on the keys, but this C has got a half and half. It's got half black, half white symbol because it's fallen off the keyboard. It appears to be down there, but it isn't. It's above, but this virtual keyboard only shows a certain amount of notes. So because that C has fallen off the keyboard, it's shown below those two keys. A bit confusing, I know. And because it's kind of fallen off, it's shown with that half black, half white symbol. See? So if I come up to here, that's an octave above my first chord there. Right, let's rotate our level data encoder one to the right. There's another mode here. This is called chord spread. Now the chord spread mode gives you a bigger spread, obviously. Every second note in the chord is transposed one octave up, resulting in a more spread out chord. We've got an A and an E, which you can see on the virtual keyboard, and this C here appears to be in the middle of the chord on the virtual keyboard, but in fact it's fallen off the Digitone keyboard and it's up there. So instead of having an A minor, A, C, E, we've got A, E, and the C is all the way up there. So the chord has been stretched out, spread out. We've still got our three notes we need, but they're spread out. That C has been moved up there. So that's how the chord spread mode works. And of course, if you transpose, it transposes everything up just the same. Let's go back to our chord root mode. There we are. Now, I'm going to rotate the D encoder to bring in the root bass note at different octaves. Top right, if you look top right of the display, it says bass octave 0. So at the moment, we haven't got this extra note we're going to bring in. So if we play this chord of A minor, now, if I rotate this bass octave to the left, it now says -1. We can't hear that lower note. If I lift and repress, now you can hear that A below. Now, let's just go back to where it was. Look at the display on the left. We've got A, C, E, these three notes. Now, if I rotate to the left up here with the D encoder, now what's happened is the A, C, E, they've all dropped down a place. The E, which is at the top of the chord, has moved over to the second column, and you can see there's an A3 on top, which is an A, which is off my keyboard here, down here somewhere. That's our low A root. Now if I drop this down again, watch the A3 change to A2. See, now you've got that even lower note. If I go down again, it sounds funny because I actually haven't got an A1 note, so we can't hear that. So let's bring it back to, say, 1. That's bringing in a kind of sub bass, which is really nice, isn't it? And of course, that's maintained as you transpose up and down. This chord here, which is actually a minor 7th, A minor 7th, it's got that low A as well. So we've actually got 1, 3, 5 and 7, and we've got that A3. So that's like A3, and then we've got C5, E5 and G. Instead of having that A there, we've got the low A. So we don't have both A's, we just replace this A with the low A. See, A3, C5, E5, G5. And obviously you can mess around with these, come up with different chords, and I'll show you how to use these chords in the sequence in a while. When I first started planning for this video, I thought, oh, this will be about a 10-minute video, but in fact, there's an awful lot to this, and it's worth learning, I think. Right, let's try and save some chords to the chord memory. So we'll rotate the level data encoder again over to chord memory. And it says chord memory empty, function plus Y to create a chord. Now, none of these trigs are lit up. If they were lit, they'd be lit in blue, showing you that we've got a chord in the chord memory, but the memory is clear at the moment. If you had a chord and you wanted to clear it, you simply hold the trig and the clear button, the play button. We're not going to use this mode at the moment. We're going to come all the way back to root. Okay, I'm going to record this chord into my chord memory. So I hold function and yes. I'm going to press this number 9 where that chord lives. you can see in the tiny keyboard the 3 notes, okay? And if I say yes, it's going to save it. If I say no, it will quit. I can preview the chord by holding function and yes. See? So I like that. I'm going to say yes, save. Save chord to memory. Now, you remember the memory was empty, so number 1 is flashing, waiting for this chord to be stored there. That's fine, I'm happy with that. Say yes. That's now saved. Now if I rotate the level data encoder all the way up to chord memory, we've got a key that's lit up in blue, number 1, and it's our A minor chord. We've successfully stored a chord in that memory bank. Bear in mind that this is global, so any chords in here will be transposed. See, and you're seeing the notes on the keyboard up there. If I transpose the chord and press the blue key, you hear the transposition. Let's bring it back. Good, so that's great, isn't it? Right, let's repeat this process, but we'll do it a different way. Let's go back to the folded mode, which is that one there, where we hear the 2 scales of A natural minor, A AEOLIAN. We'll press function and yes, waiting for notes. Now I'm going to play a funny chord here. I'm going to play 3 consecutive notes. I'm going to play A, B and C together. Now I could do it here on the digitone. So it's these 3 notes. So a slight clash, it's like an A minor second. If I say no, comes out of that. Let's go into that again, function and yes. I could play it here on the MIDI keyboard. Okay, let's say I like that. I'm going to say yes to save. Notice number 2 is flashing now in the memory slots. I'm happy with that. Say yes. Scroll over. And now we've got that chord there and that chord there. So I've got 2 chords in my memory bank now. So let's erase this one. If I hold 2 and clear, it's gone. Let's come back to where we were before. If you hit function and yes and you input a chord, supposing I play that, okay, and I've made a mistake, I don't like that, I can hold function and yes to audition it. And if I don't like what I've done, I hold function and no, and now that chord has been cleared and it's waiting for fresh notes to be entered. Okay, so let's put in a different chord here. We've got an A minor chord in, okay. Let's put in a E major chord, shall we? So I could do it here. Now, of course, I can't do E major on here because there isn't a G sharp. So if I do this, you can see E, G sharp and B in the MIDI keyboard there. I like that, so I'm going to say yes, yes, and now if I rotate the level data encoder to the memory, I've got E major there, A minor there. You see? So you're not tied to the scale or the mode. You can put notes in that aren't in that mode, and I've done that there. I put that G sharp in there. You see? So if I play this, you can see that G sharp is on the keyboard there. It's a bit misleading, isn't it? Because you can't see the 3 black notes side by side, but it's in fact those 3 notes there, see? Notice that the B note there has fallen off the keyboard, so it's at the bottom of that chord. It's this note here, and it's shown as a half black, half white note on the virtual keyboard. If you've got a chord here and you want to edit that chord in any way, this is how you do it. You press function and yes, and you press the trig of the chord you want to change. Yes, let's put that chord into the sort of buffer. I can hold function and yes to hear that. Now I can add and delete notes to taste. Now I need to scroll back to the normal mode, say. I can't see that G sharp because it's not part of the mode, you see? But I could do it on the MIDI keyboard. So I could add a seventh, I could add a D, like that. See? Take it out, put it in again, take it out, do it here. See? So if you press one of the red keys, it's gone from the chord, press it again, it's back in. Now if I hold function and yes, you can hear that E7 chord I've made. I like that. Say yes, save. Now I could save it back over the number 2, but it's come up with number 3, so I'll save it as a new chord. Yes. Scroll over. Now I've got A minor, E major, E7. See? So it's a great way of building up a bank of chords. Right, so let's record something into the sequencer now. So come out of the keyboard mode by pressing the keyboard setup key. Go into the grid recording mode by pressing the rec key, so it's lit red. No trigs lit at the moment. Notice with that key not lit, we get the 3 lines, the track lines in the display. So when we're in grid recording mode, we get that kind of diamond, I think it's a diamond symbol in the display. So we're ready to start recording some chords. I'm going to press and hold trig 1. First step in the sequence. It's only a 1-bar pattern. I'm going to press the note edit button, and now it says press keys 1 to 16 to add notes. And notice my blue chords have come up now. So if I press number 1, that's put that chord on the first step of the sequence. If I play this, see it's there on the first beat of every bar. You can input chords in any of the modes. I happen to be in C memory, chord memory. Look, bottom left, I could go to chord spread, chord center, chord root, fold, normal, but I'm going to keep it on C memory for the moment. If you look at the top of the display, it says note edit step 101. So if I press the right arrow until it says 5, now I'm on step 5, the second beat of the bar. I'll put in this chord of E major. So now I've got the A minor chord on step 1 and the E major chord on step 2. Let's come over to step 9, which is the third beat of the bar. Put our E7 chord in there. And now we'll come over to the step 13 and we'll input our A minor chord in again. Now I've got a whole bar. It's brilliant, isn't it? I love that. Now if I hold function and the right arrow, it jumps to the steps that have got inputted chords. Can you see? Let go and it jumps back to my blue chords. Now, supposing I want to edit one of my chords. So let's just come out of this for the moment. Right, so I've got my 4 chords. So I've got A minor, E major, E7, A minor. If I want to edit one of these chords, supposing I want to edit this E major chord here, I hold that, hold note edit, and now I get this menu come up in the screen. Now the A encoder changes the note. An exclamation mark will come up next to the note if it's not in the current scale. I can use the A encoder or the E encoder. So if I just turn the A encoder to the right, and notice it jumped to C, that's fine. Now listen. Notice how it's changed that chord. Can you see, interestingly, let's just bring that back to B. Now notice the G sharp 5. Do you remember I said to you that the G sharp's not part of this mode? There's no black notes. G sharp is a black note. See the exclamation mark? It's warning me that that note is not part of the scale. But as a guitarist, I know that E major works fine with the chord of A minor in the key of A minor. It's just warning me that. So if I turn the A encoder or the E encoder, let's turn the E encoder to show you that works. If I go to a sharp, see the exclamation marks come up. Let's bring it back to where it was. Actually, I quite like that. See, that was quite nice, wasn't it? So that's changing the note. By the way, if you push in, you only get notes in the mode, you see? Whereas if you turn normally without pushing, you get the sharps as well. So that's changing the note. Notice Elektron prefer to use sharps to flats because they use the hashtag symbol for the sharp. They don't use the lowercase b, they prefer the hashtag, and I can understand that. That's very easily recognisable as a sharp, isn't it? If I go back into that menu I was in before, and I'm on step 1, that's that A minor chord, I can delete a highlighted note. So if I want to delete that A4, I hold function and up arrow. Now that note's gone. If I hold function and down, it puts a note at the bottom of the chord. I can always hold function and yes to hear that chord at that point in the bar. By the way, doing this, we don't hear the time and the length, we only hear the note and the velocity. Okay, so if I brought the velocity down of this here and press function and yes, that's an interesting thing I've just discovered. If you hold function down and rotate the velocity, they all change at the same time. It's interesting, isn't it? That is it. That is how to use the chord mode, and it's pretty amazing. It's pretty thorough, isn't it? Like I said, when I started researching for this, I hadn't realised how detailed this is and what you can actually do. And I've just put that very simple chord sequence in, and then of course you can do that on every track. Remember, this is just one track. You could do it on all 16 tracks. Obviously you'd be limited eventually for polyphony, but you probably wouldn't want to do all 16 tracks, but maybe 2 or 3, or you could copy the data of this track to another track and have the other track playing exactly the same thing. I'm sure I'll get to that as I move forward with the machine. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you feel like you got something from it, give it a like and consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. If you want to give me some encouragement, you can make a donation either here on YouTube or preferably on my website, which is www.daddylongles.com. Thank you very much for watching, and you'll see me in my next video.